kunene sesingenile ke eminyakeni lokumusha emakhaya etibhedlela emadolobheni asetkomplus takhona singenile ke tsine bekunene tsine ke nehlelo lakho Yilungelo Lakho it's your right lapho ke sikwatisa khona ngethi indzaba tebathengi letsematheni asethembe ke ukuphethe kahle umnyaka lomusha futhi ke kulomnyaka utawuthatha tinqumo letingcono kunalokumnyaka lophelile ke kuthi phela ugweme tikweleti nalokunye ke lokungagcina sekweba injabulo yakho sicophile ke lohlelo lami mhlambukeli angeke ukwade kusishaya licingo kepha ke ungasithumela i-email noma ke ubeke umbono wakho ku Facebook na ku Twitter sawubona ke mbukeli kanzi leli Yilungelo Lakho it's your right. It's been over a decade since pro-consumer legislation in the form of the National Credit Act and the Consumer Protection Act were introduced. Now, the establishment of these two pieces of legislation brought hope to consumers who had endured years of exploitation by service providers. Now, so many years down the line, we examine the extent to which these laws have gone in liberating South African consumers. But before we delve deeper into this discussion, let's take a look at this background piece.
Bathengi bayehla bayenyuka buthaphuthaphu bakhangwa ngile mikhicito yaseShayina liyahlukahlukene letfolakala lapha basuka eSwatini eZimbabwe nasetifundzeni letahlukahlukene talapha eMzansi
suke sizostokha impahla esithengisayo so bayakhona ukusenzela ama half price
singabantwana impahla sabantwana abaningi siyakhona ukuzithola izinto esiyifunela eChina Mall like izinto ezicheap sayithola khonala izinto zakhona zilesi akusizinto edurayo
especially for business mawuthenga lapha uthengisela abanye abantu beka ingubo ngisithole ngamalini 300 each but mina ngisithole nga 150 each discount for 15.
Kepha ke noma kushibhile lapha equality yaleminye yale mikhicito isakhatsata labanyenti kulesizathu ke lesenda labanye bathengi ukuthi batijikise letinye timpahla lese bathengile kepha bathi bahlangana netimbila tithutha labanye bathengi basibalisele ku Facebook uthi emalungele bathengi akalandzelwa lapha awukwati kuphinzisela impahla losoyithengile ngoba awuniketwa nesiliphi kuletinye titolo Phazu yena uthi akacabangi ukuthi bayadi ngeConsumer Protection Act eChina Mall ngendlela lekucashatwa ngayo bathengi phindile uthi lokumcoka kubo yibhizinisi nje umthetho abanenzaba nawo kumele baboshwe emalungele bathengi ke afaka lawa kubuyiselwa kwempahla lephukile kungakapheli inyanga letisithupha ithengiwe kungakhohliswa ngikubeka imibhalo lengahambelani nemsebenzi lowentiwa impahla lethide kepha kuletinye titolo bakushaya indiva lokhu
I'm not going to ask for your permission. I'm just going to do it for the sake of consumers. I'm taking it with me. It's mine to keep for 3
weeks to check your policies. This is totally wrong.
Ngalesinye sikhathi bathengi bayabhadaliswa ngalokungekho emthethweni uma baphinzisela timpahla kanti futhi netiliphi labaniketwa tona batibhalwa ngendlela lefanele tiliphi semthethweni ke kumele tibe nemininingwane legcwele yesitolo futhi tatise umthengi ngemalungelo akhe wenda njani ke uma ungakhoni nekusifunza leso siliphu
clips abafuna kungasilahli ngoba basuke basibhakele ngesitshayi
mangabe uphinisela into emuva you get asked imbuzo eminingi and you end up it's a difficult process
ngathi ngayi laptop esitolo and then I think asengiyisebenzise for 6 months after that yangenwa amanzi laptop ngangiyikhokhela neinsurance and then ngayithatha ngayibuyisela esitolo if ngiyibuyisela esitolo ilaptop bangitshela ukuthi abayikavarisha amanzi it's my fault so ngaenda lapha ngiyiluzile laptop leyo
ngase uthenga ibrew ekiningi
ingane uyakwazi ukubuyela emuva eshop esilongothi uphethe islip bakwazi ukushintshela futhi abanankinga.
No cha ngwazi mina I just know ukuthi menginemali I buy and that's it. I don't know if there's a right food said.
I think before there was this saying that say a customer is always right, but now I don't think that's how it operates anymore.
In National Credit Act ayivumelani nekuthi bathengi bahehwe ngemibhalo lefana nalona noma bathengiselwe tintfo bangakaticeli kepha kusendeka lokho. Uma kunjena ke bathengi bayabuta ukuthi baphi kanzi labavikela emalungelo abo. Zindle Dlamini Mugabe, Yilungelo Lakho.
Siyabonga ke kuzinhle nyalo ke ukukhuluma kabanti ngalamalungelo nekuthi ke ayabasebenzela yini bathenga. Sesimukele Thami Bolani yena ke uyi-consumer activist, siphinde simukele na Nosipho Zikishe yena ke uphethe ligumbi letikhalo tebathengi ehhovisi le-National Credit Regulator, and on the line we have Trevor Harting, the spokesperson for the National Consumer Commission. A very good morning to you three. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning.
Now ndawucala ngawe Nosipho. Umvile ke izindlela ku-insert ukhala ngekuthi some of the consumers don't know their rights, and even if they do, they don't actually care about them. Where are we in South Africa in terms of enforcing and protecting rights of the consumer?
In the perspective of the National Credit Regulator, we try to hold road shows. We try to feature in all these radio stations in all languages, 9 provinces. We try to go and do raids where consumers are scared to come forward in cases of abuse. We will show up in credit provider premises without being invited because maybe perhaps we had received a tip-off, or if we haven't received a tip-off, it would be normally raids that we'll conduct in towns, small towns where we will get a lot of consumer complaints in respect of loan sharks. Unfortunately, as much as we try to do reach out to consumers, it also remains the responsibility of the consumer to also step forward when they know their rights. And I think it's more of them, of fear of being victimized or fear of the process being longer to protect or to report this abuse to the authorities or to the regulators.
Right. Now, Tabinga bathengi noma ke consumers bayawathi malungelo awo.
Ngiqale nje ngokuthi I've been involved in consumer protection work for more than 20 years. And I think in country and consumers, we've made significant progress. One, ekwenzeni ukuthi kube khona ama-institutions afana no-NCR, no-NCC, ukuthi protect namalungelo abathengi. Kanti futhi nabo abathengi generally, knowledge yabo about ama-rights wabo nama-responsibilities isi-improve kakhulu compared to when we started in the late 90s. So I think kune improvement enkulu, but there's still a lot of work to be done. There's still a lot of shortcomings, especially on the side of NCC, which need to be addressed to as quickly as possible. But I think yes, progress yona ikhona. Nama-consumers amaningi, they understand ukuthi banamalungelo, kukhona ama-organizations abayakubona njengo-NCR, NCC, namanye amaningi, ama-ombud schemes, nokunye okwenzela ukuthi kuvikela amalungelo abathengi.
All right. Now, Trevor Harting, I hope you can hear me on the line. As the National Protection Act is now celebrating 10 years since inception, where are we in South Africa in terms of respecting and upholding the rights of the consumer?
Well, to be very honest, the consumers out there, it appears that they are beginning to understand that they have rights. But one of the issues there is the fact that many of them still don't understand that they also have an obligation. The Consumer Commission, similar to the NCR and what NCR mentioned earlier on, goes to quite an extent to raise awareness about consumer rights and consumer obligations. But we have to admit that, yes, as Tommy said just now, there are still quite a lot of shortcomings. There are also some challenges that we are experiencing as the Consumer Commission to ensure that we are an excellent consumer protection organization in the country. Some of these would be, the lack of technical in-house resources, which we don't have. And as you would know, there are various issues that spring up throughout the year, and some of these require quite a large amount of budget. So budget is an issue in some respects, especially for the unplanned issues that spring up that we need to attend to urgently. But other than that, we are making significant strides insofar as consumer protection is concerned, and we think that we are at a level now where people are starting to step forward and raise their voices and demand their rights. And I'm saying that based on the amount of complaints that are coming forward.
And which areas of improvement do you think the National Credit Consumer Commission needs to focus on?
Well, there's one of the areas is the issue of investigations. There's also the issue of setting legal precedent, which is something that we are currently placing quite a lot of emphasis on. And then also there's the issue of product recalls. And we are actually looking into these matters. Insofar as product recalls are concerned, for example, we have increased our capacity and we are now focusing very attentively on product recalls. We are looking at other markets and jurisdictions, and particularly where there's products that are also being sold in South Africa. We are looking into that, and we are monitoring these other markets so that even before these products get to our shores, or even if there are products that are currently being sold on our shores, we ensure that we tackle them before issues arise and before consumers even come to us and complain about these issues. We attend to them proactively.
Mr. Harting, thank you so much. Please stay on the line. We'll be in touch with you shortly. That's Trevor Harting, the spokesperson of the NCC. Now, there are 8 consumer rights stipulated in the Consumer Protection Act. And we'll touch on them during the show. Yilungelo Lakho. I'm joined by consumer activist and also from the National Consumer Commission. Now, back to you. We're talking about taking stock about whether consumer rights have been respected in South Africa, have been withheld in South Africa. What do you think should be done insofar as this is the new year, insofar as upholding all those values and those those rights moving forward?
Look, I believe that it's entirely, as much as we leave responsibility on the consumer, it's also on the regulators also that they should closely monitor the industry based on either the complaints that are brought forward, obviously the discussions and the meetings that are being held with all these other forums where consumer protection is an issue. So I believe that a close monitoring of the consumer industry as a whole, where you have to put in your measures on how to go about making consumers aware and how you can go about protecting consumer rights. So it's never enough. Like I said before, it's never enough. It's never far-reaching. But we try as much as we can.
All right. Now, we talk of timeshare, we talk of high data costs, we talk of unauthorized deductions of SASSA beneficiaries' accounts. I mean, it goes on and on. So, I mean, in as much as these issues are covered by the Consumer Protection Act, but then we are still lacking in enforcing the Consumer Protection Act. Why is that?
I'm quite very aware that the Consumer Commission is looking into timeshares, and I think you've got a representative that will most probably touch on that. But as an industry, so it becomes an industry problem where all the regulators, the commission, and all the ombuds are actually involved in such topics of discussion. So it does not become a one-man show where it's only the consumer protection or consumer commission that has to take care of this problem. So it becomes a consumer problem where all these industries meet up, and the regulators, they try and squeeze into the problem.
Yeah. Now, Tami, having listened to some of the people in the insert, some of them don't actually care about their consumer rights. Some of them don't even know. Do you think it's a result of a lack of consumer education, or it's just apathy?
No, correct. I don't think we're doing enough in terms of consumer education. And I've been singing this song now for many, many, many years. We started a newspaper called Consumer Affairs 10, 15 years ago, and we tried to get support from government agencies, and we didn't get it. If it was not for ABSA, that paper would not have been established. So that shows that even on the side of government agencies, there's a lack of commitment towards consumer education. Your radio, which has access to many people, is not being used to educate consumers. We used to argue as a National Consumer Forum to say consumer education should be a priority on your radio, on your TV, in newspapers to educate more consumers. And that's not being done. And every time you ask why, people will tell you that there are lack of resources, which is not true. It's just not true. There is sufficient resources in this country to make sure a consumer voice reaches people on a regular basis. I used to do Ikwekwezi FM for 10 years or so, every morning, educating people about their consumer rights, talking to people about SMME issues. But there was no government agency that was prepared to say, look, let's support what you are doing so that more people can get to hear about their rights and responsibilities. So I think we need to focus on those issues to say if we want people to know about their rights, let's do more to educate them. Otherwise, we're going to have a incest like this where people say, we don't know, we don't care.
It's actually not true. There's a lack of resources in terms of educating consumers about their rights. Is that true? How do you respond to that?
But obviously there's different perspective to this. I know for a fact that as we speak, there has been, I think the couple of days back, there has been a collaboration between the Motor Industry Ombudsman, the Consumer Protection Office, where they were now, and the SAPS, where they were doing inspections on the motor industry. We, as a regulator as well, have gone out and investigated the motor industry as a whole, where we have found, in terms of the National Credit Act, there was certain abuse. There were fees added on the consumers' credit agreements, which were not part of the National Credit Act. We've gone those matters, and now we've issued compliance notices to say to these big guys that you need to comply, you need to refund these consumers what you have overcharged and what was not part of the National Credit Act. We've gone out to protect consumers where we, as the regulator as well, we've issued out, and we've taken one of the big guys as well to the National Consumer Commission in respect of reckless lending, where we have found, based on the complaints we've seen and based on the monitoring exercise, compliance monitoring exercise, that they were reckless, that they needed to refund. We've gone out to say club fees, those fees are not part of the credit agreement. Why are you charging the consumers? You need to refund the consumers. So I think it depends on the industry that we're focusing on, but obviously consumer protection is a wide topic as well. So if we limit it to the National Credit Act, that is exactly what we've done so far.
As we've heard in the insert, I guess the biggest culprit, well, no disrespect, is the Chinese companies. And ukhona ke lokhala ngithi uthenga i-laptop and then i-laptop yangena emandini, wayibuyisela bathi ke awayikhavarishi nabe ingena emandini, it's his fault. Why doesn't regulators or institutions like yourselves step in?
Like I said, it's a wide industry, and it's different subdivisions, of which I fall within the credit sphere. So what you see on the Chinese mall or industry, it's cash purchases. We don't deal with cash purchases. We regulate the credit purchases. So the National Consumer Commission would be for them to go and focus on that. We've got the goods and services. Those are matters where the consumers can go themselves and report to the goods and services where they're purchasing goods that are not of good quality. The National Consumer Protection Act also gives them that they've got a right to good quality of the goods and products that they buy.
All right. Now, Trevor, it's back to you on the line. As you just heard, Nosipo from the National Credit Regulator is actually throwing the gauntlet on the NCC that they should be the one taking the initiative and protecting consumer rights. Just a short while ago, we saw in the insert one consumer bought a laptop from a Chinese company and it fell into water. When it tried to take it back, they said it's not covered when it's water damaged. So why isn't the NCC taking responsibility for this? Why isn't it stepping in?
Well, you see, it's not to say that we are not stepping in and not doing anything about this. There are various industries that we are targeting, that we are penetrating, we are making inroads into. Very simple example is that the issue of timeshares, for example, is something that's been coming on for a long time. What we have done this year is we have launched or instituted an inquiry, a national inquiry, into this industry, and we are currently dealing with the contracts that many are complaining about that are unfair and that everyone know people are unable to get out of. We are hoping to conclude this process before the end of our financial year. Further to that, another thing that Nosipo touched on earlier on, which is also quite true, is the issue of second-hand vehicles. I think it is important to state that early this year, we managed to secure a judgment against a second-hand motor dealer who, just like many others out there, as I believe, are selling vehicles to people with transactional agreements that have unfair contract terms or clauses within them. We have set a legal precedent with this, and such matters, or more such matters now, can now be referred to provincial consumer affairs officers who can use that precedent and take these matters for resolution to provincial courts. There are others that I can mention as well, such as the PNBs, that we secured a judgment against them as well, another legal precedent, whereby a consumer would pay a deposit to occupy a certain accommodation for a certain period of time. And if you have certain personal challenges or changes in your circumstances, when you cancel the reservation, you then forfeit your deposit. That has now been taken care of. Once again, it is a matter that has been dealt with, and we can now refer such matters very swiftly to provinces, and these matters can be resolved at provincial courts. They are now legal precedent in that regard. I think a very important thing to state here is that what the Consumer Commission does is that it looks into systemic problems. It looks into legal principles that are being violated or not abided by, and we can then set these legal precedents with cases that we take to the tribunal, investigate in the respective industries.
All right, Mr. Harting, let's leave it there for now. We'll take a short break. Sorry about that now. No more returns, no more refunds. Siyabuya futhi mbukele sayimagete. Do you know your rights? Do you feel liberated by them? We still continue our discussion about consumer rights. Let's now take a look at Facebook messages that have been coming through. Konzeni says, they don't care about blacks. I took my phone there to be fixed. The charger was not working. They fixed it. But when I took it home after 2 days, it was not working and then returned it to see the problem. They didn't understand. They fought with me that I must add some more money. They have no guarantee. Sibulelo says, how many people know of the Consumer Affairs Office? How effective are their services in relation to protection of these rights and ensuring that shops comply? Kimberly says, if the Consumer Affairs Office officials can do their job properly, lento ngabe ayenzeki, but because South Africa is for all, even Chinese retail shops do as they please, no CPR is practiced there. Hi, siyabonga ke my messages that have been coming through. Now, Nosipho ngicabanga ukuthi ndayikhomba kuwe, but you're not doing your jobs properly. Chinese shops don't even know what the Consumer Protection Act is.
Inyani ke leyo ingathi aba-consumer bayazi ukuba i-consumer protection offices kuzo zonke i-provinces lapha eSouth Africa zivulelekile ke kuze zona ke sizisebenzisayo nathi as national credit regulator apho singakwazi ufikelela kakhona ngoba sizokwazi si-based thina apha eMidrand eGauteng asizokwazi kube sisiya kuzo zonke i-provinces ngexesha elinye. So that's why ixesha elininzi sizawucela uba ngaba abathengi banxulumane ne-consumer affairs offices. E-Eastern Cape ikhona kuzo zonke ezi-provinces zikhona ezo office. And then ibeke ngokungabo abareporta ku-National Credit Regulator bathi i-abuse eninzi injena. Thina i-office nethu siyakwazi nofumana ne-complaints ezizikole Facebook singakwazi ubanceda ngoba thina sikwazi ubanceda kwi-matters ezine-credit. Ngoba ke xa uyothenga kwi-Chinese shop nje babenditshilo yi-cash transaction. So xa i-cash transaction iba ngu-CPA ke umthetho we-CPA ozawukhona ukubanceda. So siye sizigqithise ke ngoku ku-goods and services uba ngaba ye-motor industry sizawucela nabo badile ngayo. Uba funeke iye ye-cellphone equality yayo funeka iye kwi-goods and services, but if baya overcharge kwindaba ze-data sizabagqithisa siye baye kwi-ICASA ukwenza bakwazi uncedeka.
Okay. Now tell me, yini info lekumele ayende ama-consumers in order to know their rights?
Well, okokuqala first khumbula ukuthi la sikhuluma ngama-consumers ahlukene. Kunama-consumers ane-access to information. Ama-consumers afundile athi umuntu umefuna ukuthatha i-decision ahamba ukwenza research iqala ebese ehamba ukwenza i-decision ecorrect. Kukhona ama-consumers adinga usizo, adinga information. That's why I'm talking about consumer education ukuthi we're not doing enough in terms of consumer education. Because the NCR ikhona sikhuluma ama-consumer affairs offices kuma-provinces, I'm not sure how effective they are. Kukhona i-NCC, kukhona i-ICASA namanye. But if sifuna ukuthi consumer protection ibe effective, kufanele ukuthi every consumer like South Africa, 55 million people or whatever, ba-understand ukuthi ama-rights wabo athini, ama-responsibilities wabo aqala phi agcina phi. And loo nto singayenza ukuthi abantu sibanikeze information all the time. For instance, mina, because I know my rights, if ngothenga noma yini, if I take any decision, angeke umuntu angirobhe because I know ukuthi ama-rights wami athini, ama-responsibilities wami athini. So mina, my argument is not ukuthi NCR or NCC, they're not doing anything. My argument ukuthi they're not doing enough ekufundiseni abantu ngamalungelo abo so that bakwazi ukuthi bathathe ama-decisions are correct. Two, i-consumer protection is not just about ukuthenga nokubuyisela izinto esitolo if zingekho right. It's also about i-policy. For instance, sikhuluma ngendaba ye-data manje. Data la eSouth Africa iyabiza idlula wonke amazwe la e-Africa. What can be done by i-government, by consumers, ama-consumer organizations, NGO, ukwehlisa i-price ye-data ukuze abantu bakwazi ukuthi bathole information. These are the issues thina as consumer activists esikhuluma ngazo ukuthi though ukhona umsebenzi oright owenziwayo, but it's not enough. And it's not a question of resources. That one, I've worked in government, I understand these issues, is simply not true.
But then the big question is, ingabe bayatihlupha yini wona ema-consumers ngekwati ngamalungelo abo? Do they read statutes such as this, the Consumer Protection Act, the National Credit Act?
That's another issue.
Bawavakashela nema-office ema-consumer affairs.
Well, that's an issue because, I mean, if you're telling something, right, you're telling a single, for instance. Awazi ukuthi khona umthetho othi isinko kufanele sibo 700 grams, right? If ungekho umuntu okunikeza lo information on a regular basis, angeke uyazi loo nto leyo. So there must be somebody ozokunikeza lo information, and uma usunayo lo information then usuyakwazi ukuthi uqhubekele phambili and search for more information. So uqala kuphi? Uqala kuthina as ama-consumer organizations, as ama-regulators, ukuthi senze abantu ukuthi bayifune le information, sibasupporte.
I think the issue here is who should be taking the initiative. Is it the NCR and the NCC who should be imparting the consumer education, or is it the consumer themselves? Like mele ngabe kuba ngibo labahluphayo. Ngoba uva abantu ba complain about hey mashayina asibulala mashayina this and that.
That's why I say ukuthi kunama-consumers ahlukene la. If uthatha abantu abasemjondolo, uthatha abantu abasemalokishini, some of them are unemployed, were uneducated. You can't expect them to take that initiative because they don't even know where to start.
Okay.
They are worried to go to that day bazodlani because they don't have money to buy food. So we need to give them information so that at least they can then start somewhere.
Okay.
Right? But a person like me, I have the responsibility ukuthi ngizifunele information, ngizame ukuthi ngiyi-protect without depending on NCR. But there is a responsibility to NCR, to NCC, which they must provide the information and the education to those ones who are vulnerable. Because if we don't do that, then those Kumabama Chinese or other shops, they'll continue exploiting our consumers. Yeah. That's my argument, and it's based on experience.
All right. All right. Now, do you think consumer rights bodies are doing enough to educate consumers about their rights? Let's take another break. Stabuya Foods. Welcome back. Just a reminder to our viewers, we're not live today, therefore we're not able to take your calls, but then you can send your Facebook messages as the show progresses. You've heard about that, Nosipo. Ukhala ngekuthi the gauntlet should be on your office to start education, especially for those consumers in disadvantaged communities, labangenayo access to radio, TV, or any other platforms.
Angazi ukuthi ngoba each office in a responsibility towards the community, towards our consumers. Towards protection and consumer rights. So honestly, Tina, from our side, from the sphere where in the position in the office where I come from, that is done. It's done. We've got an education department specifically for that. We've got training sessions where we hold with the consumer affairs officers or provincial courts. We've got those engagements where we filter the knowledge we have as the National Credit Regulator through to those officers, so that when the ordinary men on the street can walk into the consumer officers, they are also aware ukuthi when a complaint is so, if fall under the National Credit Act, who should they contact at the National Credit Regulator to have this matter sorted out as soon as reasonably possible, so that the consuming ahambi lokho ihamba ama office amaningi ngakhona ukufumana uncedo. So based on what we are doing as a responsibility, Tina, as far as consumer education and protection is concerned, that is done.
Okay. Now, Trevor Hunting, back to you. Let's talk about the issue of refunds. I mean, about exchanges, does the exchange counter disclaimer prohibiting exchanges or refunds after 14 days, for instance, protect the shop against such refunds?
No. You see, all businesses in the ordinary course are subjected to the provisions of the Consumer Protection Act. So if you are selling something in the ordinary course of business, be it a laptop, be it a cell phone or anything, you have to observe the provisions of the Consumer Protection Act.
All right. Do you think that consumers know their rights?
Well, I do think that there are some consumers out there that know their rights, but the reality out there is that there are still many of them that don't know their rights or understand what their rights are or their obligations are. The Consumer Commission, similar to what the NCR mentioned just now, we have a dedicated unit that attends to education and awareness. And I do believe that government should take the lead insofar as information or disseminating of information is concerned to people in the country. The Consumer Commission does do business. We've got a unit for education, and whereby they do business education as well as consumer education. So we do go out to all areas of the country to do consumer and business education, and we have material that we distribute in which is in various languages to our consumers out there. But in addition to that, true as to what Tami is saying, the provinces should also be who are on the ground should also be doing something in that regard. And I do believe that they do have units within the provinces that are responsible for such disseminating of such information and educating consumers.
Tami did say that the NCC perhaps is not doing enough insofar as providing consumer education. He made an example of consumers, those at disadvantaged communities, those who are unemployed, who don't have access to radio or other platforms. What then? What then happens in that regard?
We identify these kind of communities, and as I mentioned earlier on, we have a unit that goes out into these areas that disseminate information. They have workshops in these areas. They also have exhibitions in these areas. They mobilize ordinary people on the ground, speaking to structures that are on the ground, to gather these people and to disseminate information to them. But at the same time, if the consumers attend these kind of sessions and actually do nothing for themselves when they leave these sessions, then, I mean, the ball is in their court at the end to also do something with the information that they received.
All right, Trevor, thank you. Let's talk about inzaba contracts. Nangabe i-consumer icala i-contract like a credit contract. Are these contracts explained properly to the consumers?
In terms of the National Credit Act, fanukuthi contract when we sign as umthengi is explained to you in your language yakho understandayo. It must be simple and ingabikho ambiguous ukuthi izobane legal jargon ngaphansi. So in terms of our act, we make sure ukuthi credit provider knows exactly how to draft a contract that is simple kuwe wena mthengi. So when you sign it, you already know ukuthi wena what are you expected. Wena fana ukuthi ubhadala malini, uzoyibhadala nini, ngamaphi ama fees, interest ithini ngale contract uyayisayina. So it is done, and in terms of compliance mase funeke befaka ama returns abo, we also want to have a sample. We want to see kubo ukuthi ama consumers athethe ilanguage enga la eGauteng demographics ithini na. So siyazifuna nezo zinto in terms of compliance reporting. So siyazifumana.
Well, there's a fear that, there's a concern that organizations or companies don't fear organizations like yours. Bayati nje ukuthi khona NCC, ikona NCR, but those organizations are just toothless dogs.
That is also a true perspective. Bakhona abaningi abayibonile abashoyo. But as far as the impact esiyenzile from the beginning of the inception of the National Credit Act until now, I think we've raised enough awareness, not only kumthengi, but to the other person, which is the credit provider, who is our registrant. So when we do AMA compliance reporting, when we force them to submit, we force them to give us a true reflection of their business. So that is when they would get scared, ukuthi they would disclose certain information that nathi sizoyibona ukuthi ayihambi kanjena. And mase ingahambi njalo, Tina, we've got powers to institute investigation. And that's one thing they don't want. We find, even before the tribunal, maninga ma fine eswafumene as a result of our investigation, not only based on our complaints eswabonile, but also on our compliance monitoring.
Asisibuyele ke kulenzaba ema credit contracts. Namanje, I can actually attest to the fact that they are not transparent. There's still fine print. Why do we have fine print?
That's what we wanting to phase out. Ukuthi fine print, even if you fine print, but it must be explained to you ukuthi ithethe ukuthini le contract usayinayo. Nawe buza ungasayini because ufuna imali. Nawe buza ukuthi hawu bathini la ezansi, bak explaina kanjani. Into ebalekile more than masongena ku contract, you need to understand ama obligation yakho, because yi loan leyana bazo expect ukuthi you pay back the money that you are taking. So babuza ukuthi ungekabufundi ukuthi okay mina ngithatha le mali ngizoyibuyisa nini. ithini interest ngawapha amanye ama-fees because amanye ama-consumer expect ukuthi uma sengiboleka i-1,000 ngizoyibuyisa i-1,000 rand aba-understand ukuthi kune-interest even if uzoyiboleka for 30 days this amount i-1,000 rand there will be interest, there will be fees and then usayine i-contract knowing very good okay i-expiry date yale contract ngu-2019 ungabi so surprised ukuthi 2017 how ayipheli contract mara maso usayine zangubuze and maso usayina lapha phansi it means ukuthi you understand so ask before take the contract the National Credit Act allows you 5 days but a pre-agreement quotation before you sign it if wena ufundanga ithathu ise kumzukulu ekhaya ayifunde ise kumuntu or call us do something nawe nje take an initiative as a consumer if, or understand ukuthi kwenzekalani but imali uyayifuna.
Tami, you share the same sentiment?
Yes and no. I mean, I'm your apply e-account bank today. And tell me afterwards ukuthi uzofunda wonke lama 10 pages abazokunika wona today but sign here initially by the time neqeda ukusign an initial you want to get out and
ngifuna le mali
and I say ufike ku standard 8 uzohlala ubheke ufundele wonke the information about terms and conditions as a bank no you can't you see so language becomes a big issue. I remember some time ago, at least kufanele kube khona ama-summaries in Zulu, in Xhosa, in Sotho. Mhlambe let's say document is 10 pages. Then kwenziwe a summary mhlambe half a page in your own language so that uzokwazi ukuyifunda and have an understanding ukuthi ubhala ukuthini la but it's not.
But the onus is also on the consumer to ask.
Of course.
As consumers,
but I mean, we are signing up because we are phone low mal, desperate or phone a low bank account. But at the same time, if those understand, it becomes difficult for you to ask intelligent questions. So if you feel good, you're not going to be asking intelligent questions, so it's very too late.
Right. Now, when a service provider takes you for a ride, do you even know where to complain, Bugeli? Well, we'll be right back after this. We've come to our final segment and we hope by the end of the program you'll be well equipped with information that will help you stand up for your rights. Now, Trevor, it's back to you. There's a concern that, organizations like yours and the NCR are actually toothless dogs. Service providers, shops alike don't even fear the existence of your organizations. How would you respond to that?
Fortunately, there are still people out there that hold a view of that kind. I mean, it's quite, and I want to say this very clearly, it is quite sad to see that there are some institutions out there, or some businesses out there that have felt the effects of the work that we do. Hence, I mentioned earlier on about some tribunal judgments. Some of them are now left with having to pay fines of hundreds of thousands of rands. It is not nice to do that to businesses, but unfortunately, if you do not comply with the law, then we have to do that. But true to what Tami has said earlier on, yes, there is a view of that kind out there, and we are doing as much as we possibly can at this point in time to change that view around by making sure that we secure these legal judgments against businesses. And then at the same time, what will assist us in getting the message, that strong message that we're trying to send out there better, is the provinces doing their work, making sure that they take similar type of cases to their provincial courts.
All right, Trevor Harting, thank you so much for your analysis and for your insights. You've been a great help. We really appreciate your time. That is Trevor Harting, the spokesperson of the NCC. All right, let's take a look at some of the messages that have been coming through. Pindile Utsi, that's why I'll never go by there anymore. They think they're doing us a favor. Consumer rights are not respected at all. These people come to our country to push their business, ignore the laws and easily get away with it. How do you buy things that don't work and cannot return for exchange or refunds? It's stated robbery. They must comply or face jail time, and they're so rude. Tabiseng says, I'm not a fan of those shops. Any place that says you must buy but cannot refund or exchange goods, it's a no-no for me. I'm a very vocal person and I refuse to take any shadiness lying down, so I probably will be on their case for sure. Pazu says, there's no respect for us as consumers at China malls. These people take us for granted every day. I don't really think they know or have a copy of Consumer Protection Act book. Do they even understand English? Pertinent question there. How do you respond to that, Nosipo?
Baba Nami Ngiti, Nama have been a victim. I mean, at the end of the day, even though I can work for the National Credit Regulator, I'm a consumer, I'm an ordinary consumer. But one thing I think ukutama consumers, we mustn't make excuses. If you're not getting good quality for imali yako, find a body where you can complain. Go anywhere, knock every door. If you are a consumer who doesn't know, or who is not aware which institution to go complain to, stumble upon a door. Don't just sit and accept the service angel. It's unacceptable. So Mina, I would say they must go and report it to the Consumer Commission.
All right. As we start the new year, going forward, what needs to be done about consumer rights? Where do we need to improve?
There's still a lot. There's a room for improvement. We are amending the National Credit Act. There is a bill coming in from the National Credit Act, but it's still before the Parliament, still being commented on, where we need to see our consumers' financials. We still look into that. So there is a bill. Consumers must look out for that. It's still before Parliament that will assist consumers who are earning a lower income but have debts. Besides debt review, there is hope for those consumers.
Okay. Tami, your closing comments?
We talk about revolutions in this country all the time. I think next year we need a consumer revolution.
Oh, yeah, we do.
In terms of, in fact, I remember my last elections as a UK Labour Party, and I was talking about a consumer revolution. And I think that's what we need in this country. Agencies like NCR, NCC, working with civil society, with consumer space. You need more consumer education. You need effective consumer complaints handling. I think if we do those things, things can improve significantly in our country. I mean, there's a message, Dala say preacher la, even here, Yilungelo Lakho, Yilungelo Lakho, and siyaqhubeka say preacher because siyabona ukuthi noma kukhona progress. The progress ayenzeki ngendlela efanelekile, so we need to speed it up a little bit.
All right. Tami, Nosipo, thank you so much for joining us. Siyabonga kakhulu isikhathi senu. Phambili ngamalungelo abathengi phambili. Let me thank my studio guests for their time and for sharing such valuable information. I hope 2018 will be a better year for you, Mbugeli, in terms of enjoying your rights as a consumer. Sibonga kakhulu futhi nakuwe Mbugeli for being with us till now. You can catch a repeat of this show again this coming Thursday at 10 p.m. Otherwise, catch us again next Monday for your weekly dose of consumer issues from Isimpio Ngwane and the rest of the team. All the best best wishes for the year 2018, I beg your pardon, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.